All right, guess it's going. Cool. Welcome. Glad you made it. Pretty snowy today. I'm going to be talking about Ansible, which is an instrumentation tool similar to Chef or Puppet or Salt or the Sprinkle one or whatever it was called. That Charm, I guess I think it was called. The one that Ubuntu really likes lately. Those sorts of tools. Can also use it for just like scripting or instrumentation tasks like migrations if you want to have low downtime migrations or rolling updates, things like that. I'm mostly going to be talking about it from the server deployment perspective because that's what I use it the most for. And my name is Kevin Kallan. My handle is Wiz1Solutions basically everywhere. I maintain a Drupal module called FillPDF, which has a Drupal 8 release. It's not really as impressive anymore now that Drupal 8's been out for like a year. But it had one on day one. I like languages, and I think Slovene is harder than Icelandic. Don't tell the Icelanders though. And it's only because I speak Norwegian probably. And I don't speak like Russian or anything, so it's an unfair comparison. I like languages. Okay, so Ansible calls itself an IT automation tool, which is pretty accurate since you can use it for more than just deploying servers. You could use it for automating all sorts of things. I use it for a deployment script, for obviously for setting up a server. I've used it for, like I said, for a low downtime migration where I had to basically like put one site into maintenance mode, copy over the database, and then switch over the database configuration so that people would almost not have any downtime on the site. Do it in like 10 seconds or something, instead of manually going in and shutting it off and changing the configuration or redeploying or whatever and turning on the new one and blah blah blah. So that was pretty cool. It's probably the playbook, as it's called, that I'm most proud of. But I'm pretty happy about my new deployment one as well, and server setup one. But it's really nice because you can, like if you kill your server, you can just bring it back and just go from the last database back up in a much shorter time than otherwise. And you can even, you replace, as I said with deployment script, you can replace non-trivial shell scripts. So, anybody want to try to tell me what this does? I just picked some random stuff out of my playbook. It's not a trick question either.
It's creating a user.
Mm-hmm.
Then copy the profile to the call folder.
Close. Yeah, it's doing something. Anybody want a chance to guess at? Can you read this? Okay. Anyone a chance to guess at what this is doing more specifically? The name gives a very big clue. Like you could literally just read the name and I would consider it a correct answer. Yeah. This is doing a regular expression replace or addition in a file, and it's just adding CD and then this is a variable, which represents the web root or the home for the web root, yeah. So that when I log in as the web user with SSH, it'll just put me in the Drupal directory right away. And then the other one's creating a group and creating a user, so that I have something to log in with. Yeah. So anyway, this kind of shows this is pretty typical Ansible. You can name your steps. You don't have to, but it's pretty stupid not to, because it makes it easier to tell what you were doing, and it documents your server setup. Because you can just read the names of stuff, and then you can say, okay, like this is how I did it, and you don't have to remember, or take like ad hoc notes somewhere that you try to sort of reconstruct 2 years later. And then it's as you can see, it's YAML as well, similar to a lot of Drupal 8 configuration, and Ansible itself is like Python or something, which just processes this, but you don't need to know any Python to use it. You can use pretty much everything with YAML. I've never written my own Ansible module yet. I've just used roles, which are like collections of these tasks online, or just written my own tasks. It's really easy to start with because you can do it really messy in the beginning and it's still helpful and it works. And then you can kind of refine it over time and make it a little more reusable and whatnot. And I started very messy. I had like passwords in my playbook and everything just in the private repo. But now I'm doing it better. And I'll show you a little bit about that. So, okay, yeah. These are maybe a little out of order, but also maybe in order. So let's see, I already said a documentary server setup. Makes your setup shareable, that's kind of cool. So like if you're using it for a local setup like Vagrant, then you can just make the Vagrant box set itself up and just give it to another developer who doesn't have to care as much about what it's doing or how it's doing it, as long as it works. And then they can develop in the same environment as you. So it gets rid of it, or it helps Vagrant do one of its marketing promises, which is like it eliminates works on my machine, even more so. And it lets you test server builds locally. So like I can literally build a VM with my server on it, essentially, like some small tweaks because it's a VM and not a server, but it's basically the server, and so I can reproduce issues on that, fix them, and then deploy it and know that it's going to work, and like know if I'm going to have to do a registry rebuild with Drush, for example. Speaking of which, that reminds me, I'm on the wrong one. Did I go to the next one? Something I wanted to do. I swear there's like three screens here or something. Or this one's full screen and it's probably using multiple desktops, and so let's take it over. Okay, let's try to somehow. How did I do this? F9? There we go. Okay. So that reminds me that I wanted to show you this. I have my VM set up right now, and I'm going to kill it, and then I'm going to start building it again while I give the rest of the talk. And then we'll see if it finishes in time. I have no clue, but can at least see some Ansible, and there will be some stuff to tell you about anyway. Yes. Goes pretty fast. Okay, and then just gonna do let me see, this should be good enough. So it's already destroyed, so that'll go through, and I'll just make sure it starts going, because it'd be very embarrassing if I'm giving the talk that I come back and it's like, oh, I couldn't start, because it takes some time. Okay, it's creating it. Yeah, that should be fine. If it's creating it, that should be fine. Oh, this is one of the screens. That's what the problem is. Interesting. It's mirror. Oh, I see. I can see the slides here. Oh, that's useful. NIL, I guess. Now I learned. There we go. Okay, cool. Right, so we'll be seeing an example of testing the server builds locally in a little while. And yeah, so then the next slide, like, okay, why is this better or whatever than Chef or Puppet or something else? My answer to that is, like, if you already know something else, just keep using it. Like, but a lot of people are using nothing. Like, not hardly scripting and just setting up servers manually and like hoping for the best, or just doing everything the hard way. And it's better to use something, and Ansible is a good something to start with, because it's pretty, especially if you know some YAML or have used something that uses Ansible, it's pretty easy to get your head around and start writing. Like, literally, I was probably productive with it the first day, like doing something, not finishing something or not being done with it, but I was like getting somewhere, like, oh, okay, I see how this works, I can make this file, I can run it, blah, blah, blah. It's not a lot of overhead to get going with it. Some of the reasons for that are that it uses YAML and that you name each step, so it sort of documents what it's doing in line. Unlike, I'm not sure what Chef and Puppet are like this time, because it's been a few years since I used them, but I don't know if they had that naming on every step as much. I remember they were a little harder to read, and they had like, Ansible runs sequentially, it runs in the order that you tell it to, so you know what the run order is going to be, Some of the other ones, pros and cons with that approach, like even Salt, which also uses Ansible, they calculate the run order, and then they run like in a way that things will be ready by the time other things need to be set up, so it doesn't try to, I don't know, install Drupal before PHP is installed or something. And that's on you with Ansible, but I find that that's usually okay, because you usually know what order things are going in anyway, and don't get that confused. Occasionally it bites you, but it's not usually that hard to solve. Also, it's agentless. It just uses little Python scripts that it uploads through SSH. So you don't have to install like a master on the server to use it. You just need SSH access. And it can forward your SSH agent, so you can clone private Git repos and so on. And lately it's owned by Red Hat, and they haven't destroyed it, which is nice. They actually made it better. They're doing a pretty good job. Like I think it took me almost a year before I noticed that they had acquired it, and that's a good thing. Okay. Also, why not Docker? And I think Docker's okay. The reason that I didn't go with Docker in my latest deployment was simply that people were telling me that production was a little tricky with it, or like there was some security things or something, and also I wasn't sure how to do it, and I'm one person, so I just wanted to go with what I knew and like a reasonably good approach. So building a virtual server. But you can use Ansible to provision Docker as well. The best of both worlds, perhaps. Okay, right, a little bit more about Ansible roles. So Ansible roles are collections of tasks similar to the ones that we saw in that challenge before. MySQL here is an example of one, which does as you might expect, or which installs MySQL as you might expect. There's some interesting stuff in here as well. You can set variables on it like I've done here. And also you see me using something called Ansible Vault there, where I just literally put in a variable representing the password, and the password is encrypted, and I give a little password when I run it, or store it in a file in my case, to decrypt it. So the playbook decrypts it to use it, but I don't store it in the repo decrypted. So even though it's a private repo, also I'm encrypting my passwords and whatnot, which is nice, because it means I can actually show you my real playbook, and I'm not like just randomly showing passwords in line. Like I can even show the password file as long as I don't decrypt it. It's just a bunch of numbers. It says like Ansible on it and stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty useful. And yeah, okay, there is Ansible Galaxy, which is how you install them, but as I put on the second line, I usually just look for if Geerling guy has done a role for it, because at least in the Drupal world, he's pretty much done everything we need. Like almost everything. I use a couple other authors as well, but he wrote a book on it, so he has a few examples, and he keeps them relatively updated. I think he said that he runs them every day, like automatically on cron or something. So I think he has some confidence in them as well. Then he'll know if there's errors or not. Keeps them pretty much on the latest technologies as well, so that's a thing to think about, like PHP 7 and whatnot. I think outdated versions of PHP don't even work anymore. I think that burned me on my old site, but now I'm on a modern stack, so it's okay. Alright, yeah, this is the live demo part. Let's see. I should probably move. I have no clue what Camtasia will do when I switch to mirroring, but we'll find out. Alright, let's see how this is going. So it's up to installing PHP, so while that goes, we can just look at what it's doing. I'm giving away the facade here with the task name. Alright, let me close this tab. Start at the beginning. Right, so this is I have a Drupal 7 site using Drupal Commerce. That's why it's still Drupal 7. And this is literally the playbook that I used to deploy it. And yeah, you'll see some interesting things in here that I found out, or server specific stuff. But let's look at some interesting stuff. So starting from the basics. The sort of main file that you run with Ansible is called a playbook in their terminology, and a playbook consists of multiple plays. So this is the start of the file, the 3 dashes here, typical YAML thing, and then this first level is the play level. So this hardened security and so on. This is describing what the following tasks and roles and so on are doing. And then the host thing just says what machines to do it on. So you can configure this a variety of ways. You can put them into groups. You can give the individual names. You can use default here like I did because I'm running it through Vagrant, which just makes one called default automatically. Ansible has the concept of inventory, which is basically what I just said, the hosts, the groups, the servers, whatnot. The things that you can deploy to. You can deploy to multiple servers at the same time, obviously. You can roll them. You can tell it how many to do at once. You can, like, I've never done it, but you can set a failure percentage, like keep going until this percentage has failed, and then give up, and things like that. This become is like them making everything all reusable and whatnot. Just think of it as sudo. So this is sudo. So it's because it runs as root on my real one, but in this one it runs as Vagrant, so I have to tell it to switch to root. And then vars files. These are just files that contain variables if I don't want to put them directly in the playbook. And weird bugs, sometimes they only seem to work for some roles if I put them in the vars files. that got me for like hours. Right, and then we start getting to the meat of it, which is the tasks. So roles run with a higher priority than tasks, so that's why they have this pre-tasks thing, which you can tell that they kind of bolted on later after they were like, what if people want to run things before the roles? So yeah, I have, all I'm doing in this first one is just doing some parallel specific variables because I run Vagrant with parallels locally. So this is the local copy. And then my little, my comments to myself, which you also get to see. Yeah, the first 5 minutes of security, right? When you have a new server, they say that's the most important, or that's where you can do a lot of things to greatly increase your security in a short amount of time, like putting up a firewall and changing the SSH port, stuff like that. Let's see, doing a swap file, making temporary storage use tempfs like memory instead of the disk, and you can't execute things on it, so on. Little security stuff like that. Good old open files. Making sure I only have one version of PHP. It's like all the fixes that you can tell that I was fighting against are in the beginning, a lot of them at least, because I think the new PHP repo for Ubuntu, like, it can do multiple versions, and sometimes you wind up with multiple versions and not the one that you want by default. So I try to go against that. And then I have this little ignore errors thing, which is because I might not have any installed anyway, and then I don't want that to stop the playbook. That's okay, because that's what I want anyway. All right, so that's sort of the pre stuff, and then we get into the main setup server part. Before I get here, is there anyone who's just like, has any questions? Going too fast, going too slow? Generally following the concepts? Okay, cool. Then I'll keep doing what I'm doing. Let's just see how this guy's doing. No! Oh, this thing. Forget it. It'll work the second time. I'm just gonna run it again. Yeah, there's just some weird thing. It's probably saying something about ext dom, right? Yeah. I don't know what. That started happening, and I thought I had gotten it, but I guess not. It should work on the second time. And it's only like on the first build too. There's all this stuff that only happens on the first build. It probably wouldn't happen when I'm deploying to my server. I hope not, at least. Well, because I already have Drush installed and whatnot, right? But interesting. Let's see. So that one there, if we want to look at sort of some quick troubleshooting, is this guy here, installing Drush, essentially. So it's doing the composer dependencies and installing Drush and whatnot. And yeah, this is like this code here is what drives all of that. So it saves me a lot of time. And I'm telling it I want Drush, keep it updated if new versions come out, and so on. So going back to the main setup, where we set up server. Let's see what else is interesting here. Updating all the packages. That's always a good thing to do on a new server. You never know what their operating system image has on it by default. So and then I just do like, this is a safe upgrade. Like it's not gonna do a major version, but it'll do the latest packages like in Ubuntu LTS or whatnot. And that's a stable, long-term stable release, so I should be able to trust what they're giving me to some degree, and it's been pretty good. I put in some things that I like. This one is a good example to start looking at variables. So this guy is FPS servlet container, and that, as you see here, I've defined it here, and it's Tomcat 8, because I have a little Tomcat app that I need to run my service. Add PHP, add like everything, all these things. It's very nice to not have to do it myself. And then, okay, this is a good example of a conditional. This when is parallels thing. So is parallels is another variable that is just checking this fact, as it's called, that Ansible has, if it's parallels. The facts are like, it uses this thing called factor, this software called factor, and it checks a bunch of stuff about the machine that it's running on, IP addresses, this virtualization type, what is the shell that the environment variables, all these things, and you can use that in this to conditionally do stuff. So I do. And anyway, I install Xdebug obviously only on dev, not on prod. And then I have like some specific things that I do on dev. This one in here, I'm copying SSL certificates because I have like fillpdf.io on prod and then www.fillpdf.io on devs, because Let's Encrypt can generate certificates for both of those. So I just put all of those names in there and then copy it down, and then I can like use real SSL on dev. So that's the short version of that. And then if I this is a good thing, how to explain. So here it looks like I'm generating a SSL certificate. Usually it doesn't, or it just uses the staging server for Let's Encrypt to do like a fake one. On the command line, when I run it, I can pass in like runtime variables on the command line, and then if I tell it, I don't know, like stage equals nothing or stage equals 0 or whatever, then it'll do a real production generation of the SSL certificate. So when I'm like ready, then I can tell it, okay, generate a real SSL certificate on this specific run, and then it's generated and it won't do anything because it'll be like, let's see, where is it that it's actually generating it? Yeah, you see this guy here, this creates one that I highlighted. If that exists, it doesn't run this command. So it's as we say, idempotent in that way. Like it always does the same thing, or it always has the same result, or it should. And Ansible is mostly that. Sometimes you got to work for it, like actively checking if stuff is set and then not doing it in that case. And sometimes it's not really worth it, but most of the time it'll have the same result. And it's usually shell commands like this which throw a wrench in things, right? Because they always want to do the same thing, and then so telling Ansible what it does, or like what file it creates, if it creates a file at the end, helps it to know, okay, I don't have to run this, and save some time. Okay, so that's that, and then we get to the fun part of setting up the actual site. This is where it failed last time. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe one more time. Maybe the third time would be the charm. Getting there. We'll see if it gets farther than I can explain, or if I explain past it. Right, so the main site. So.
But wait, like, so you're just running it 3 times, and it means that it will just like.
Yeah, I'm just rerunning it, and then it's incrementally doing more because it failed because of some weird package issues or something that just popped up.
Probably then, like on the second run, something is like
It got farther. Yeah. Yeah, normally it should only take one run, and it used to up until I decided I wanted to do a presentation again, as it goes. And I thought I fixed that. I did try to fix it, but apparently I didn't. But yeah, hopefully it'll be able to prep drush this time and get farther. Anyway, even if it doesn't, you can see that it's doing some things, and then maybe we can look more at that. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, I should finish soon, so we can have some questions. Right, so here I'm doing, fetching the servlet thing. My little creativity of like, this is how I tell it that I want to install a new version. Like, I just changed the name of the file to install or whatever, and then if it's not there, if the zip file is not there, it won't do it. But then I don't want to have the zip file there all the time, so geez, what do? I replace it with an empty file here. It's like, you use it like a marker file, so it won't download this 50 meg thing every time, unless it needs to. It's not too important. This is I probably had some issues with GitLab and keys and SSH keys and whatnot, so this is a way to actually, I just downloaded it with some SSH key scan command or something that I found on Stack Overflow and put it here. A lot of code wisdom that like I forgot why I did it, and that's good. Because it means it doesn't have to weigh my head down. I could just look at it and be like, that's there for a good reason. And then maybe go and review it, like if I do a major revision of the deployment playbook when I go to Drupal 9 or something. Right, and then we're doing pretty. Now we're getting to the part that I showed you in that challenge, creating the file, temporarily letting everyone write to it because I got to create probably settings files or something. Doing that thing, setting permissions so that Apache can read it but not write to it, because the web server shouldn't be writing to itself generally, except for particular directories like files. And this makes it, that's one thing I like the most about using Ansible. It makes it easy to automatically do all this security stuff that I just don't bother with myself. Like going in and making the settings file read-only and then making it not read-only so that I can deploy the code, and having the htaccess files and the files directory so people can't randomly upload PHP and execute it, and not letting the web server write to anything except particular files, directories, and etc. Like, I can just instrument all that, and then I'm good. And it'll do it every time by itself, and ensure that it's secure just by me deploying code or whatnot. Okay, and then I add my public key to it so I can SSH in. Very neat. Update my code if necessary. And let's see, there's one that, force, that makes it update it. And it also wipes away any local changes, because I just want the canonical code on production. I shouldn't be changing anything on production. So the playbook is like that. Blah, blah, blah. And as you can see, even though only I run this, I like to put comments so I remember what happened, as if I'm commenting for someone else. I highly recommend this for future you, because future you is often someone else. So this is very helpful. I even have a README for me. There's that one. Maybe if I do that. This guy here, where I tell myself how to deploy and what arguments I have to pass for it and whatnot. Okay, settings, file upload, do the symlink. I love being able to automate all of this. I don't know if I've said that yet. Fix permissions, blah, blah, blah. All this security stuff. My old Drupal 6 database, because of migrate, I had a migration on this site. And then we have the concept of handlers, which are things that you can do later on in response to tasks at the end of the play. So if you reconfigured some of your PHP FPM pools, for example, then you can tell it to restart at the end. This is just defining them, and then when I think that we say, what do we say? You can look for it, restart PHP FPM. Let's see, why did I define this but didn't actually call it? I think the roles might be calling these. These might be from a previous iteration of the playbook that I just never removed them because they weren't doing anything. Yeah, no, I guess. Oh, but this. Oh, yeah, I restarted it manually. Yeah, I think these are just from. I think I found some dead code. But yeah, like if we look at, let's see. I'm sure. Let's see if we can find something real quick in Geerling Guy's PHP, or rather his PHP FPM one, Apache PHP FPM. I bet he's restarting something here. Configure Debian. Yeah. Okay. You see this notify here. This is telling it to run this handler with the same name. So restart Apache if this task runs. So that way you're not restarting everything on every run. Just if something happens, then you tell this handler to do whatever it does. Usually restarting stuff. Cool. And then this is one of my favorites as well, just setting up a cron job for Drupal. Because I work on so many sites that don't have cron running like ever. Yeah, so that's that. Did we get lucky? No, we didn't get lucky. I'm sorry. But that's okay. Because you saw that it did a lot of stuff. And okay, so it did set up PHP. So let's go in and we can at least confirm something like that. If I had time, I'd probably run Drush myself and then run it again because it worked that time. But yeah, we put in the version of PHP that I wanted to. So it did some things. And then just to show you what Vault looks like. Quick, don't take a picture of that. You can take a picture if you want. You don't have the key. So that's how I store all the passwords and whatnot. Cool. All right, let's go back to the all right, then my thing is so big that I can't see it. Use as separate display. No idea what Camtasia's gonna do. How did that get there? Is it like this? Yep, and then where's my presenter view? Do I not have it? No questions. All right.
It actually requires assigning by an organization so we can
Oh, really?
post them.
Oh, maybe that's a thing that. Oh, that's right. I had to change it to anyone. Well, any questions? Ask me some questions. Yeah.
So I've seen this used to use it for provisioning.
Yeah.
Mostly like local stuff.
Uh-huh.
I've never really seen it used in production. How do you manage? So when you're doing like security updates,
Yeah.
you just re-provision and it picks up the most recent updates.
So you mean Drupal security updates?
No, like the server updates.
Yeah, for server updates, I would just re-provision, and then I have that step that upgrades server software, so it would grab it like that. Also, when I originally provision, I make sure that I install unattended upgrades, which has its own, cron job, which will install security updates specifically. So those two ways. Yeah.
Have you used Ansible Tower?
I haven't used Ansible Tower.
Actually, we just recently started using it as for example, the security update. So we can, when there is a security update, we can create a playbook
Mm-hmm.
for that and then just run it to all our servers.
Through Ansible Tower.
For that one specific update.
Yeah. So apparently Ansible Tower, for the presentation, who might not have heard him, lets you create specific playbooks and run them on your servers for specific security updates a little more, I guess, easily than doing it yourself. Good to know.
It has a lot of good features, but well, it's on the more expensive side.
Yeah. Does it still cost? I heard they were making it free eventually. Maybe they changed their mind. Yeah.
Well, just a couple of servers, but
Oh, I see.
like we have 150 servers or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's 15,000 a year.
Yeah, if you wanted, you could probably home roll something
Yeah.
to save money, but yeah, it's easy. Sometimes it's easier to just pay money.
But another nice thing about that is that it can do it like
You're talking about pull mode,
Yeah.
like Ansible pull. Yeah, Ansible has this pull mode which I've never used, where it can work a bit like a master, like a client server configuration, where it calls out to a server to say like, you have anything for me to do, so you
But
can
then
just
you need like a client.
yeah. Then you sort of need a client server. You probably need key exchange and so on.
But basically, tower can handle it so that you have just a key there, and then it can call tower, and tower provides.
So Tower acts as the server.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good, like, well, things like PHP memory limit. So developers find out that, okay, this needs a bit more memory.
Yeah.
They just change the configuration, push it to the repo, it says auto deployment, server
Yeah.
calls the Ansible tower,
Yeah.
sees that, okay, the PHP memory limit has been changed, and provisions it to the server.
Yeah. Yeah. That's handy. I should tell my one client about this, because we just had to we had to put in a script to check disk space, because there's this one client that just never wants to delete anything, and they have to up their disk space every so often, and it's always an emergency because we never see it coming. And I had to do that on like 7 servers, so the release manager had to go and run 7 playbooks and merge like 7 pull requests and everything, and I'm sure that he might appreciate something doing it for him. Any more questions? Yeah.
Can you show like where you just like define like your servers, like groups or whatever, you know?
Yeah. So I am. You might. All right. So we're on 2 screens, are we? All right. Well, I'll just make do with this. Gotta go back to here and move that over here. Okay. So I'm using Vagrant DigitalOcean to actually provision, or just Vagrant locally, and it generates its own inventory, plus I have my own here for like, this was mostly for when I was migrating, so I could have both servers. So I'm basically in my, you may have noticed that I was using a provisioning script, and that's because I tell it to use this inventory directory, so it uses both of those files. And then, yeah, you see this is what Vagrant generates. Like, it tells it what private key to use, blah, blah, blah. And then I just tell it default. That's where the host default thing was from the playbook. But I often find myself using scripts with it because it's a little easier to get all the arguments that you want in and not have to remember them and whatnot. My deploy script looks like this. It's sort of a subset of the setup website part of my playbook. Get rid of this so I have a little more space. So I run this as the regular user and update my code base. Lately, I made this FPS version variable so I can tag the repo and then just deploy a specific tag instead of always deploying master. Just another safeguard so that I don't accidentally deploy something I don't want to. And then this is a really neat deploy script because somewhere I like, make. Let's see, this is making it read only. It must have been earlier. Yeah, like I make sure settings is writable so that when I clone it, it doesn't error out for like a sec, and then I could just do it for a short period of time. Like it's writable, it clones, and then I fix it. And then I can do little drush things to make sure that it's however I want, like configure it as it should be, in case it somehow got changed. Turn off any development modules. So in this case, it's probably like devel and dblog, all those things, automatically if they're on. Or in this case, it'll always try to turn them off because I didn't do a little. I could have, if I wanted to, I could put in a command that runs drush pml or whatever and checks if it's in there, and then only runs this one if so. But not really worth it because drush will fail, or drush will do nothing pretty quickly if the modules aren't on. Run DB updates. I can tell it to run registry rebuild, which I've had to do one time. Unfortunately, I think I did something with rules. It's always rules. And then clear the cache, which is, of course, the most important step of anything. Any other questions? We have like 1 minute, 2 minutes. That's okay. Oh, okay. It full screened itself. Oh, okay, yeah. We already asked questions, though. I did technically skip the slide. I pre-skipped it. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, I suppose. Yeah, so, as I said, that's me everywhere. I still have cards, and this is still true. Never order 1,000 cards. That's my final recommendation. Order like 50. Even those will probably last like 2 years.
Yeah, and probably more expensive than ordering 1,000.
Yes, sometimes it is. Yeah, I don't know. Get cards that are very recyclable then, and just throw them out after a little while, or don't put any like short-term contact info like phone numbers on them. And someone told me that they shouldn't be glossy, but mine are glossy. So what are you gonna do? Cool. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.